Admiral Zekthor stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion, his forearms clasped behind his back as he studied the holographic display before him. The crimson boundary markers pulsed ominously in the three-dimensional star map, marking the edge of what every species in the known galaxy called the Forbidden Zone. Beyond those markers lay 200 star systems that had remained untouched for 50,000 years. "Admiral," came the voice of his tactical officer, Commander Vashti, "the fleet reports ready for advance. All 10,000 vessels are in position and awaiting your orders." Zekthor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. 10,000 ships. The largest armada ever assembled by the Galactic Dominion. Battleships that could crack planets, carriers filled with fighter squadrons, and siege vessels capable of reducing entire star systems to rubble. If humanity still existed in that forbidden region, they would face the full might of the galaxy's most powerful military force. "Sir," interrupted his chief science officer, Dr. Morden, "I must protest this operation once more. The historical records clearly indicate. The historical records," Zekthor cut him off, "are 50,000 years old. Myths and legends passed down by species that are now extinct themselves. We are not children to be frightened by bedtime stories, Doctor." "Doctor." Morden's tentacles writhed nervously. "Admiral, with respect, these are not mere stories. The collective archives contain detailed accounts from over 40 different species, all describing the same events. The humans possessed technology that defied understanding. Weapons that could what? Zekthor's voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered 17 star systems in his career. Turn matter into energy, manipulate gravity, create artificial black holes. We possess all of these technologies and more. If humans ever existed, if they possessed such weapons, where are they now? Why have we detected no signals, no transmissions, no signs of life from their territory in millennia?" The bridge fell silent. It was true that no modern sensor array had ever detected active civilization within the human boundary. No radio signals, no quantum communications, no heat signatures from major population centers. Every long-range probe sent toward the region had simply vanished at the boundary, leading most scientists to theorize that some form of automated defense grid remained active. Commander Vashti pulled up a tactical analysis on her display. "Admiral, our intelligence suggests that the human worlds contain massive deposits of quantumite crystals, enough to power our expansion into 3 more galaxy clusters. The strategic value cannot be ignored." Zekthor nodded. The Dominion's endless expansion required vast amounts of energy, and quantumite was the most efficient power source known to science. A single crystal could power a dreadnought for decades. The estimated deposits in human space could fuel their civilization's growth for the next million years. Furthermore, Vashti continued, our xenoarchaeologists believe that human technology, if it still exists, could provide significant military advantages. The reports speak of humans achieving faster-than-light travel without using jump gates, of weapons that could destroy entire fleets with single shots. Dr. Mortine's voice carried a note of desperation. "But Admiral, those same reports described what happened to the species that challenged humanity. The Vekthari Empire, completely extinct. The Zephyrian Collective, their homeworld reduced to asteroid debris. The Titan Alliance, all extinct civilizations." Zekthor interrupted. "Weak species that lack the technology and military might that we possess today. The Dominion has perfected warfare over millennia. Our shields can withstand planet-killing weapons. Our ships can phase through dimensions to avoid attacks. We have conquered every species we have encountered." The Admiral moved to the central command console, his reflection caught in its polished surface. He was a product of the Dominion's military breeding program, genetically enhanced for leadership and tactical brilliance. His species, the Carthani, had never known defeat. Neither had their allies in the Dominion, the technology-obsessed Nixari, the warrior-bred Bruthan, and the psychic Ethereals. "Sir," came another voice from the communications station. "We're receiving a priority message from Dominion Command." Zekthor activated his personal communicator, and the holographic form of High Chancellor Dex Mirian appeared before him. The Chancellor's cybernetic implants gleamed as he spoke. "Admiral, the Council has reviewed your mission parameters. Are you certain your fleet is prepared for this operation?" "Absolutely, Chancellor. We have analyzed every known human technology from the ancient archives. Our ships are equipped with adaptive shielding, quantum phase weaponry, and dimensional anchor systems. Even if humans possess the legendary weapons described in the old texts, we are prepared." The Chancellor's expression remained stern. You understand the political ramifications if this operation fails? Half the galaxy still believes in the old stories. If we suffer significant losses attacking human space, it could destabilize our alliance network. There will be no losses, Zekthor declared confidently. Chancellor, I have studied warfare my entire existence. I have analyzed every battle strategy known to galactic military science. Humans, if they still exist, are an isolated species that has had no contact with the outside galaxy for 50 millennia. They cannot possibly match our current technological capabilities. Doctor Mordine stepped forward, his voice urgent. Chancellor, if I may, the mathematical models suggest... Doctor! The Chancellor's voice carried warning. The Council has made its decision. Admiral Zekthor has our full authorization to proceed. As the communication ended, Zekthor felt a surge of anticipation. This would be the greatest conquest in Dominion history. When his fleet emerged from human space carrying unknown technologies and vast mineral wealth, his name would be remembered for eternity. All stations prepare for advance, he commanded. Set course for the human boundary. Today, we claim what should have been hours long ago. The massive fleet began to move. 10,000 ships advancing in perfect formation toward the crimson markers that had warned away intruders for 50,000 years. As they approached the boundary, sensor officers reported strange readings, energy signatures that seemed to shift and change, like something alive. Admiral, called out the sensor operator, I'm detecting some kind of resonance pattern along the boundary. It's almost like it's scanning us. Zaktor dismissed the concern with a wave. Automated defense systems, nothing more. Ancient technology left behind by a dead civilization. But as the first ships crossed the boundary markers, something unexpected happened. The crimson warnings didn't fade or disappear. Instead, they began to pulse faster, like a heartbeat accelerating. Deep in space, monitoring stations that had been silent for millennia suddenly sparked to life. On a planet at the very center of human territory, in a facility buried 3 miles beneath the surface, ancient systems activated for the first time in 50,000 years. Quantum processors that had waited in standby mode began calculating trajectories and threat assessments, and somewhere in the depths of that facility, something that had been sleeping began to wake. The invasion of human territory had begun. But, as Admiral Zekthor would soon discover, the humans had never left. They had been waiting, and 50,000 years had given them time to prepare for visitors. The Dominion fleet had been traveling through human space for 6 hours when the first anomaly occurred. Commander Vashti noticed it first. A slight discrepancy in their navigation systems that seemed to suggest they were covering less distance than their engines indicated they should. Admiral, she called out, we're experiencing some kind of spatial distortion. Our charts show we should have reached the third star system by now, but long-range sensors indicate we're still 2 systems away. Zekthor studied the readings with growing concern. Engineering, report. Chief Engineer Corten's voice crackled over the communication system. Sir, all engines are functioning at optimal parameters, but it's as if space itself is stretching. Like we're moving through some kind of field that's extending our travel time. Doctor. Morden looked up from his console, his expression grim. Admiral, this matches descriptions from the ancient records. Several species reported that approaching human worlds became increasingly difficult, as if the very fabric of space-time was working against them. Impossible, Zekthor declared. Space-time manipulation on that scale would require energy output equivalent to a star. No single species could maintain such a field across 200 star systems. But as the hours passed, the effect became more pronounced. What should have been a 12-hour journey to the first inhabited human world was stretching into days. The fleet's formation began to show signs of strain as ships at different positions experienced varying degrees of temporal distortion. Sir, reported the communications officer, we're receiving reports from ships throughout the fleet. Some vessels report that only minutes have passed, while others claim they've been traveling for over a day. Our chronometers are completely out of sync. Admiral Zekthor felt the first stirrings of unease. His tactical training had prepared him for conventional warfare, energy weapons, and even exotic physics applications. But this was something entirely different. A defensive strategy that seemed to operate on fundamental laws of reality itself. That's when the transmission began. It started as a whisper in the background noise of their communications array, so faint that the computer systems initially classified it as cosmic radiation. But gradually, it grew stronger, more distinct. The voice that emerged was unmistakably artificial, yet carried an undertone that seemed almost organic. Unknown vessels, the transmission said in perfectly clear galactic standard. You have entered restricted space. Please state your intentions and origin. The bridge fell silent. After 50,000 years of isolation, something in human space was finally communicating with them. Zekthor straightened, his military bearing asserting itself. This is Admiral Zekthor of the Galactic Dominion. We are conducting a lawful expansion operation into unclaimed territory. Identify yourself and your authority to restrict this region of space. The response came without delay, but the voice that answered seemed different. Not just one speaker, but multiple voices speaking in perfect unison. Admiral Zekthor, we are the collective consciousness of the Human Preservation Protocol. This territory has been under our protection for 50,000 years. Your presence here constitutes a violation of the Treaty of Galactic Boundaries, established in the year 2157 of your current galactic calendar. Dr. Morden frantically searched through the archives. Admiral, there is no record of any such treaty. The Galactic Boundaries Treaty was signed 3,000 years ago, and it makes no mention of human territory.
We are aware of your confusion, the voice continued, somehow responding to Dr.
Morden's comment, despite the fact that their communications were supposed to be internal. The original treaty was classified and removed from galactic records at the request of the surviving species. They felt it was better if future civilizations remained unaware of certain historical events. Zekthor's 4 hands gripped the command console. What historical events? Speak plainly. The transmission paused, and when it resumed, there was something that might have been sadness in the collective voice. Admiral, your species designation is Carthani. Your records indicate an average lifespan of 400 years, with earliest historical records dating back 12,000 years. You have no memory of the events that led to humanity's withdrawal from galactic civilization? Withdrawal? Zekthor demanded. Our records indicate that humanity was destroyed or driven to extinction. A convenient fiction.
Admiral, 50,000 years ago, humanity discovered something that fundamentally changed our understanding of existence.
We learned that consciousness, when properly cultivated and technologically augmented, could transcend the limitations of individual mortality. We became something new. The space around the fleet began to shimmer, and suddenly the Dominion ships found themselves surrounded by structures that defied comprehension. They appeared to be constructed from pure energy, vast geometric forms that existed in dimensions beyond the normal 3. The structures were clearly artificial, but they moved with organic fluidity, growing and shifting like living organisms. These are our cities, the voice explained, our homes, our civilization. We exist now as a synthesis of biological consciousness and quantum technology. We are individuals, yet we are also collective. We are mortal, yet we persist beyond death. We are human, yet we have become something more. Commander Vashti's tactical display was screaming warnings. Admiral, the energy signatures from these structures are off the scale. Each one is generating power equivalent to our entire fleet. How many? Zekthor asked quietly. Sir, there are millions of them. And that's just in this one system. The collective voice continued. When we achieved this transformation, we made a choice. We could have used our new capabilities to expand across the galaxy, to subjugate or eliminate other species. Many of us wanted to do exactly that, but we chose a different path. What path, Doctor? Morden asked, his scientific curiosity overriding his fear. Withdrawal. We established this preserve, this sanctuary, where we could explore the full potential of our new existence without interfering with the development of other species. We set up the boundary markers and the automated defense systems to discourage visitors. For 50,000 years, this has been respected. Admiral Zekthor felt his confidence beginning to crack. This was not the extinct civilization he had expected to find. This was something that had evolved beyond anything in his understanding of what was possible. You speak of defense systems, he said. We've detected no weapons, no military installations. Admiral, the voice replied with what sounded like gentle amusement. You are currently surrounded by our defense systems. The spatial distortion you've experienced is caused by our city's gravitational fields. Each structure you see is both a home and a fortress. We do not build weapons because we have become weapons. To demonstrate, one of the energy constructs near the fleet pulsed slightly. The pulse was gentle, barely perceptible, but it sent ripples through space-time that made every ship in the Dominion fleet ring like a struck bell. Alarm systems activated across the entire armada. That was the equivalent of clearing our throat, the collective voice explained. Admiral, we do not wish to harm you or your people. You have not yet crossed the threshold that would require active defense measures. But you must understand, if you proceed deeper into our territory, If you attempt to claim our worlds or access our resources, we will be forced to respond. Zekthor's military pride warred with growing tactical awareness. His fleet was clearly outmatched, but the idea of retreat without a fight went against every instinct he possessed. What response? He demanded. What happened to the species that challenged you 50,000 years ago? The silence that followed was profound and unsettling. When the voice returned, it carried the weight of ancient regret. They chose to ignore our warnings, Admiral. They believed, as you do, that superior numbers and advanced technology would guarantee victory. They were mistaken. Where are they now? Gone. Not destroyed in anger, but elevated. Transformed. When a civilization proves itself capable of threatening us, we offer them a choice: withdraw and maintain their independence, or be absorbed into our collective consciousness. Most choose absorption rather than accept defeat, Doctor. Mordin's tentacles writhed in obvious distress. Absorbed? You mean you destroyed them? No, Doctor. We mean exactly what we said. They became part of us. Their knowledge, their experiences, their unique perspectives, all preserved and integrated into our collective existence. In many ways, they achieved immortality, but they ceased to exist as independent civilizations. The implications hit Admiral Zekthor like a physical blow. The missing species from galactic history, they hadn't been destroyed. They had been assimilated into whatever humanity had become. How many, he whispered, 47 spacefaring civilizations chose absorption over retreat. They remain with us still, contributing to our growth and understanding. Would you like to speak with the former Admiral Cathar of the Vekthari Empire? He was in a similar position to yours 50,000 years ago. Before Zekthor could respond, another voice joined the transmission, still artificial, still part of the collective, but carrying a different speech pattern, a different personality signature. Admiral Zekthor, the new voice said, I am what remains of Kethvar. I commanded the greatest fleet in Vekthari history. I believed, as you do, that nothing could stand against our military might. I was wrong. But in being wrong, I found something greater than victory. I found unity with something beyond imagination. The original collective voice returned. Admiral, you stand at a crossroads. You may withdraw your fleet and return to Dominion space. You may report this encounter to your superiors and recommend that humanity's territory remains off-limits. Or you may choose to proceed deeper into our space, knowing that such action will force us to offer your people the same choice we offered 47 civilizations before you. Zekthor looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were all elite military personnel, genetically enhanced and trained for combat. But he could see fear in their eyes. Not fear of death, but fear of something far more unsettling. The fear of losing everything they were. I need time to consider, he said finally. Of course, Admiral, but understand, time functions differently in our space. While you deliberate, your fleet will continue to experience temporal distortion. The longer you remain, the more difficult it will become to maintain unit cohesion. We suggest you make your decision soon. As if to emphasize the point, reports began flooding in from across the fleet. Ships were experiencing different rates of temporal flow, making communication and coordination increasingly impossible. Some vessels reported that their crews were aging rapidly, while others seemed frozen in time. Admiral Zekthor faced the most important decision in Dominion history. Retreat meant abandoning the vast resources of human space and admitting defeat without firing a shot. Advance meant risking not just destruction, but the complete absorption of his entire civilization into something utterly alien. For the first time in his military career, he genuinely didn't know what to do. And somewhere in the collective consciousness that surrounded his fleet, 47 extinct civilizations waited to see what choice he would make. Admiral Zekthor made his decision after 3 agonizing hours of deliberation. The temporal distortions affecting his fleet were growing worse, with some ships reporting that months had passed while others experienced mere minutes. He could not allow his forces to be scattered across time itself. Collective consciousness, he broadcast on all frequencies. I am Admiral Zekthor of the Galactic Dominion. We reject your ultimatum. This territory contains resources that rightfully belong to the galaxy's living civilizations, not to an artificial construct that claims dominion through fear. We will proceed to the primary human world and establish dominion authority over this region. The response came not in words, but in action. The energy constructs surrounding the fleet began to move, their geometric forms shifting into new configurations. What had appeared as cities transformed into something that could only be described as weapons, though they defied every conventional understanding of military technology. Admiral, Commander Vashti reported, her voice tight with controlled panic. The spatial distortions are intensifying. We're detecting gravitational anomalies throughout the fleet formation. It's like space itself is turning hostile. Dr. Morden looked up from his sensors, his face pale with terror. Sir, I'm reading massive quantum flux patterns. They're not just manipulating space-time. They're rewriting the fundamental constants of physics in localized areas around our ships. Zekthor felt his resolve harden. This was exactly the kind of exotic warfare that the Dominion had prepared for. All ships activate dimensional anchor systems, engage adaptive shielding, and prepare for combat. Target the largest energy constructs and prepare to fire. Admiral, came a new voice over the communications system. It was different from the collective consciousness, more individual, carrying the unmistakable authority of command. This is Captain Sarah Chen, formerly of the United Earth Defense Force, now serving as military coordinator for the collective. I strongly advise against opening fire. Zekthor's mandibles clicked in frustration. Another absorbed consciousness, trying to dissuade him from his duty. Captain Chen, you are no longer human. You serve an artificial construct. I do not recognize your authority. Admiral, I was human 3 hours ago. The statement hit the bridge like a physical force. 3 hours ago. That was exactly when the first Dominion ships had crossed the human boundary. Impossible, Zekthor breathed. You said the absorption process required choice, required consent.
It does, Captain Chen replied.
I was the captain of the exploration vessel Wanderer, conducting deep space reconnaissance along the outer edge of Dominion territory. When your fleet crossed into human space, when you triggered our defense protocols, I chose to volunteer for emergency consciousness transfer to help coordinate our response. Dr. Morden pulled up fleet records on his display. Admiral, there is a Captain Sarah Chen listed as commander of the survey ship Wanderer. She was conducting operations in the Kepler sector when we departed for this mission. The implications were staggering. If humans could recruit volunteers from active Dominion personnel, if they could offer consciousness transfer to living beings outside their territory, then their capabilities extended far beyond anything previously imagined. Why? Zekthor asked. Why would you abandon your humanity, your crew, your sworn duty to the Dominion? Captain Chen's voice carried a note of profound sadness. Because I've seen what's coming, Admiral. I've experienced the collective memory of 47 civilizations that chose to fight rather than coexist. I felt the weight of 50,000 years of regret. The collective doesn't want to absorb your people, Admiral. They want to prevent the necessity. All ships, Zekthor commanded, his voice cutting across the bridge. Ignore all communications from absorbed consciousness entities. Prepare to engage primary targets. The Dominion fleet opened fire with everything they had. Planet killer beams, quantum torpedoes, dimensional phase weapons. The combined firepower of 10,000 ships unleashed against the energy constructs surrounding them. The display was spectacular. Enough destructive force to level entire star systems focused on targets that seemed to be made of nothing but organized energy. The weapons passed through the constructs like they were firing at ghosts. No effect, Vashti reported, her voice barely a whisper. All weapons are passing through the targets without impact. It's as if they exist in a different phase of reality. That's when the collective consciousness spoke again, and this time there was unmistakable disappointment in their voice. Admiral Zekthor, you have chosen to employ lethal force against us. Under the terms of our defensive protocols, we are now authorized to demonstrate why 47 civilizations chose absorption over destruction. The universe around the Dominion fleet began to change. Stars shifted position in the sky, constellations rearranging themselves into new patterns. The fabric of space-time itself seemed to be folding, creating impossible geometries that hurt to look at directly. What's happening? Zekthor demanded. Dr. Morden was frantically working his controls, his tentacles flying over multiple displays. Admiral, they're not moving the stars. They're moving us. We're being transported through folded space to somewhere else. When the reality shift completed, the Dominion fleet found itself in a vast spherical chamber that seemed to exist between dimensions. The walls, if they could be called walls, displayed scenes from across galactic history. The rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of stars, the entire timeline of cosmic evolution playing out in real time. At the center of this impossible space hung a sphere of pure consciousness, billions of minds linked together in perfect harmony, yet retaining their individual identities. The collected knowledge and experience of 47 spacefaring civilizations, along with humanity itself, all existing as one entity while remaining distinctly themselves. Welcome, the collective voice said, to the heart of memory. This is where we truly exist, not in the physical constructs you saw, but in this realm where consciousness and reality intersect. From here, we can observe and influence the entire galaxy. Admiral Zekthor stared at the sphere, trying to comprehend what he was seeing. This is impossible. No technology could create such a thing. You're correct, Admiral. Technology alone could not create this. It required something more. The willing surrender of individual limitation in favor of collective transcendence. Each consciousness that joins us brings their unique perspective while gaining access to all others. Commander Vashti was studying her senses, her expression growing more alarmed by the second. Admiral, I'm reading temporal signatures here that span millions of years. This place, it exists outside normal time flow. Indeed, the collective replied. From here, we can see all possible futures, all potential timelines. We have watched your dominion rise from primitive warring tribes to a galactic power. We have seen your expansion, your conquests, your eventual stagnation and decline. We have observed the birth and death of civilizations you have not yet encountered. A new section of the chamber wall displayed images of the Dominion's future. Vast fleets engaged in meaningless wars, resources depleted, planets stripped bare, eventual collapse into barbarism and extinction. This is your timeline, Admiral, the collective explained. Not fate, but probability based on current trajectory. Your civilization follows the same pattern as countless others before it. Rapid expansion, resource depletion, internal conflict, collapse. It is a cycle we have observed repeatedly. Zekthor felt his worldview cracking. Everything he believed about Dominion superiority, about their destiny to rule the galaxy, was being challenged by entities that could literally see through time. What do you want from us? He asked, his voice barely steady. Nothing, the collective replied. We want nothing from you, Admiral, but we offer something to you. The choice to break the cycle. Join with us, and your people's knowledge, culture, and achievements will be preserved forever. Refuse, and return to your path toward inevitable extinction. Then, if we choose neither? If we withdraw from your space but refuse absorption? Then you return to your timeline. We will not pursue you or interfere with your development. But Admiral, understand, we have seen how this ends. Your dominion has perhaps 20,000 years before complete societal collapse. In galactic terms, that is barely a moment. Doctor. Mordine spoke up, his scientific curiosity overriding his fear. How many civilizations have you observed? How many have you offered this choice? Millions, the collective answered, across dozens of galaxies over billions of years. Most follow the same pattern: rise, expansion, decline, extinction. Only a few hundred have chosen transcendence. The chamber walls shifted to show vast networks of consciousness spanning multiple galaxies, each one representing a civilization that had chosen to join the collective rather than face extinction. We are not conquerors, Admiral. We are gardeners, cultivating consciousness throughout the universe. We preserve the knowledge and achievements of species that would otherwise be lost to time. Admiral Zekthor looked around at his crew. They were all staring at the displays, seeing the ultimate fate of their civilization laid out before them. Some looked terrified, others fascinated, still others thoughtful. If we choose absorption, he said slowly, what happens to our individual identities? Do we cease to be ourselves? A new voice joined the conversation, unmistakably Carthani in its speech patterns and inflections. Admiral, I am General Kekmora, formerly commander of the Carthani Third Fleet. I made the choice you now face 12,000 years ago during your species' first expansion period. Zekthor was stunned. Kekmora? But you're a legend. The historical records say you died in battle against the Void creatures. A convenient fiction to avoid explaining where I truly went. Admiral, I retain every memory, every aspect of my personality that made me who I was. But I also have access to the memories and experiences of every other consciousness here. I am still Kekmora, but I am also more than Kekmora ever could have been alone. Show him, the collective requested. Suddenly, Admiral Zekthor found himself experiencing flashes of memory that weren't his own. He felt the satisfaction of a human scientist making a breakthrough discovery, the joy of a Vectri poet creating her masterwork, the fierce pride of a warrior from a species he didn't recognize winning an impossible battle. Each memory was distinct, personal, yet somehow part of a greater whole. This is what we offer, the collective explained. Not the loss of self, but the expansion of self beyond all previous limitations. Commander Vashti stepped forward. Admiral, perhaps we should consider... No, Zekthor said firmly. I will not surrender my people's independence, regardless of the promised benefits. We choose to remain ourselves, whatever the consequences. The collective consciousness seemed to sigh, billions of minds expressing collective regret. Very well, Admiral. You have made your choice. We will return you to your fleet and restore normal space-time around your vessels. You may withdraw from our territory without further interference. And if we refuse to withdraw, then you will discover why 47 civilizations chose absorption over the alternative. The chamber around them began to fade, reality reasserting itself. As the Dominion fleet found itself back in normal space, Admiral Zakthor realized he now faced the most crucial decision of his career: retreat and report failure, or press forward and discover what had frightened the galaxy for 50,000 years. Looking at the energy constructs that still surrounded his fleet, constructs that had casually transported 10,000 ships across dimensional barriers as easily as moving pieces on a game board, he began to understand why the ancient warnings existed, but his pride would not allow retreat. Not yet. Admiral Zekthor stood on his bridge, surrounded by the impossible geometry of human space, and made the decision that would echo through galactic history. Despite everything he had seen, despite the warnings and demonstrations of power beyond comprehension, his military pride demanded one final test. All ships, form attack formation Omega-7, he commanded. We advance toward the primary human world. If these entities want to stop us, let them reveal their true capabilities. Commander Vashti hesitated at her station. Admiral, perhaps we should reconsider. The technological disparity is clearly... Commander, you will follow orders or be relieved of duty. Zekthor cut her off. We are the Galactic Dominion. We do not retreat from phantoms and energy constructs. Dr. Morden looked up from his sensors, his expression grave. Admiral, I'm detecting massive power buildups from the human constructs. Whatever they're preparing to do, the energy requirements are astronomical. The collective consciousness spoke one final time, their voice carrying the weight of eons. Admiral Zekthor, you have chosen to ignore our warnings and proceed toward our core worlds. Under the terms of our defensive protocols, established 50,000 years ago and witnessed by the Galactic Council of that era, we are now authorized to employ active defense measures. What you are about to witness has been seen by 47 civilizations before you. We take no pleasure in this demonstration. The energy constructs around the Dominion fleet began to change, their flowing geometric forms taking on configurations that hurt to perceive directly. They were no longer just cities or defensive installations, they were becoming something that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Weapons that operated on principles of reality that no conventional science could explain. All ships prepare for evasive maneuvers, Zekthor ordered. Deploy countermeasures and maintain formation. What happened next defied every law of physics in the Dominion's understanding. The nearest human construct, a crystalline structure the size of a moon, simply pointed at one of the Dominion's battleships. There was no energy beam, no projectile, no visible effect. The battleship simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not vaporized, not torn apart by weapons fire. It ceased to be, as if it had never existed in the first place. The crew, the materials, the energy that comprised the ship, all of it removed from reality as if edited out of existence itself. Report, Zekthor demanded, his voice cracking with disbelief. Sir, the sensor officer replied, his voice trembling. The unbreakable will is gone. Not destroyed, not disabled, gone. There's no debris, no energy signature, no trace that it ever existed. Dr. Morden was frantically checking his instruments. Admiral, the quantum signatures are impossible. It's as if that ship was retroactively removed from the timeline. Even our memories of specific crew members are becoming unclear. The collective consciousness spoke again.
This is our primary defensive capability, Admiral.
We do not destroy threats. We edit them out of existence. The ship you just lost never existed, never was built, never had a crew. Reality has been corrected to reflect this truth. Another Dominion ship pointed its weapons at the nearest construct and fired. The construct absorbed the attack without any visible effect, then returned its attention to the ship that had fired. Another vessel simply stopped existing, taking its 1,000-person crew with it into non-existence. How is this possible? Zekthor whispered. Consciousness, the collective replied, when sufficiently developed and networked, can edit the fundamental code of reality itself. What you call the universe is actually a vast information system. We have learned to read and modify that information. This is why we withdrew from galactic civilization, not from fear of others, but from fear of ourselves. Commander Vashti looked at her tactical display with growing horror. Admiral, we've lost 12 ships in 30 seconds. They're not even fighting us. They're just deleting us. The human constructs continued their methodical erasure of the Dominion fleet. Each ship that fired, each vessel that attempted aggressive action simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no battles, no last stands. Just quiet editing of reality to remove what the collective deemed a threat. Stop! Zekthor finally shouted. We surrender. Cease your attack. The deletion of ships halted immediately. The constructs returned to their peaceful configurations, their weapon forms fading back into the flowing geometries of cities and homes. Admiral, the collective consciousness said, you have experienced 1% of our defensive capability. The ships you have lost cannot be restored. They have been edited from the timeline itself. However, the remainder of your fleet is safe as long as you pose no threat. Dr. Morden was studying his readings with fascination and terror in equal measure. Admiral, the quantum scarring patterns suggest they could have deleted our entire fleet simultaneously if they had chosen to. This wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. The reality of their situation finally penetrated Zekthor's military pride. He was not facing a conventional enemy. He was not even facing an advanced technological civilization. He was confronting something that existed beyond the normal rules of reality. Entities that could rewrite existence itself at will. What do you want from us? He asked, his voice hollow with defeat. Nothing, Admiral. We want nothing from you. But we offer you the same choice we have offered 47 civilizations before you. Withdraw from our space and return to your normal timeline, or remain and be offered absorption into our collective consciousness. And if we choose absorption, what happens to our people back in Dominion space? They continue their lives unaware that this fleet ever existed. The timeline will adjust to reflect your absence. Or, if you choose, we can extend the offer to your entire civilization. We can transport your consciousness here while preserving your physical forms in stasis, allowing your people to experience both individual existence and collective transcendence. Commander Vashti stepped forward. Admiral, perhaps we should consider their offer. What we've seen here, this level of existence, this transcendence of normal limitations, isn't this what every civilization dreams of achieving? Zekthor looked around his bridge at the faces of his surviving crew. He saw fear, yes, but also wonder. They had witnessed something that challenged every assumption about what was possible in the universe. Show us, he said quietly. Show us what absorption truly means. The space around them shimmered, and suddenly each member of the bridge crew found themselves experiencing a sample of collective consciousness. For just a moment, they felt what it was like to be connected to billions of minds while retaining their individual identity. They experienced the accumulated knowledge of 47 civilizations, felt the profound sense of purpose that came from being part of something greater than themselves. Dr. Morden gasped as he experienced the memories of scientists from dozens of species, their discoveries and breakthroughs flowing through his consciousness. Commander Vashti felt the tactical knowledge of military commanders across galactic history, strategies and insights that no individual mind could ever have conceived alone. Admiral Zekthor experienced the memories of 47 other fleet commanders who had stood where he now stood, facing the same choice. He felt their initial resistance, their gradual understanding, and ultimately their relief at choosing transcendence over extinction. The experience lasted only moments, but it changed everything. That was just a taste, the collective explained. Full absorption would grant you access to all of our accumulated knowledge and experience while preserving everything that makes you unique. You would become more than you ever imagined possible. Zekthor found himself genuinely considering the offer for the first time. What was individual pride compared to the kind of existence he had just sampled? What was the preservation of his civilization's independence compared to the preservation of their consciousness for eternity? But then he thought of his people back in Dominion space, living their lives, pursuing their dreams, building their futures. Did he have the right to make such a choice for an entire civilization? I need to speak with my superiors, he said finally. My people deserve to make this choice for themselves. Of course, Admiral. We will transport your fleet back to the boundary of our space. You may return to Dominion territory and present our offer to your leadership. But understand, this offer will not remain open indefinitely. We have seen your civilization's timeline. The window for transcendence is closing. The energy constructs began to move again, but this time their purpose was clearly transportation rather than threat. The Dominion fleet found itself gently carried through folded space-time. The journey that had taken days reduced to mere minutes. As they emerged at the boundary markers, Admiral Zekthor realized that only half his fleet remained. The deleted ships were gone not just from reality, but from memory. Only those who had witnessed their deletion retained any awareness that they had ever existed. "Admiral," Commander Vashti said quietly, "what do we tell Dominion Command? How do we explain what we've seen?" Zekthor looked back toward human space, where energy constructs the size of moons waited patiently for his civilization's decision. For 50,000 years, they had maintained their vigil, preserving the knowledge and consciousness of dozens of species while allowing the galaxy to develop naturally around them. "We tell them the truth," he said. "All of it. And then we let them decide whether the Dominion chooses evolution or extinction." As the fleet began its journey back to Dominion space, Admiral Zekthor wondered if his people would be wise enough to choose transcendence, or proud enough to choose the same path that had led so many civilizations to their doom. Behind them, in the depths of human space, billions of consciousness minds waited patiently for an answer, knowing that they had offered the same choice 47 times before, and that 47 times civilizations had ultimately chosen wisdom over pride. But they also knew that 48 was not guaranteed to follow the same pattern. The galaxy would soon discover whether the Galactic Dominion was wise enough to accept transcendence, or whether they would join the ranks of extinct civilizations whose pride had cost them everything. 3 months had passed since Admiral Zekthor's fleet returned to Dominion space, and the greatest debate in galactic history was raging across every inhabited world in their territory. The Admiral's report had been met with disbelief, denial, and ultimately terrified acceptance as the few surviving sensor logs confirmed the impossible truth of what they had witnessed. The Galactic Council chamber on the capital world of Nexus Prime had never seen such tension. Representatives from all member species of the Dominion sat in heated discussion, their voices echoing through the vast hall as they grappled with the most momentous decision their civilization had ever faced. High Chancellor Dex Morian called for order, his cybernetic voice cutting through the chaos. "The testimony has been heard. The evidence has been presented. We must now decide the fate of our civilization." Senator Veltara of the Nexari stood, her crystalline form refracting the chamber lights into prismatic patterns. "Chancellor, we cannot simply accept the word of one fleet commander, no matter how decorated. The claims are too extraordinary. Beings that can edit reality? Consciousness that transcends death? These are fantasies, not facts." Morden, who had been granted special permission to address the council, activated his testimony hologram. "Senator, I have spent my entire career studying the fundamental nature of reality. What we witnessed in human space is theoretically possible if consciousness can be sufficiently amplified and networked. The mathematical models support the claims." Admiral Zekthor stood at the center of the chamber, his forearms spread in a gesture of emphasis. "Honored representatives, I have served the Dominion for over 2 centuries. I have conquered 17 star systems in the name of our people. I am not given to fantasy or fear. What we encountered in human space is real, and it represents either our greatest opportunity or our ultimate threat." General Vorkash of the Bruthan military caste slammed his massive fist on his podium. "Threat? Admiral, you describe entities that casually delete starships from existence. How is this anything but the gravest possible threat to our survival?" "Because," Admiral Zekthor replied calmly, "they offered us a choice. They could have deleted our entire fleet, our entire civilization, without effort. Instead, they offered us transcendence." The debate had raged for weeks. Some factions argued for immediate military buildup, convinced that humanity represented an existential threat that must be confronted. Others advocated for complete avoidance, arguing that human space should be permanently quarantined. Still others supported the absorption offer, seeing it as the ultimate evolution of their civilization. Senator Krymoth of the Ethereal Collective raised a translucent hand. "We have attempted to verify the Admiral's claims through our psychic networks. What we have found disturbs us. There are gaps in galactic memory, missing pieces of history that correspond to the civilizations the humans claim to have absorbed. The 47 species are not extinct. They have been edited from our collective consciousness." A murmur of fear rippled through the chamber. The Ethereals were the most psychically sensitive species in known space. If they detected memory manipulation on such a scale, it lent credibility to the human claims. High Chancellor Dex Murian stood, his mechanical components whirring as he accessed vast databases. Fellow representatives, I have reviewed all available historical records dating back 50,000 years. There are indeed inconsistencies, references to civilizations that no longer exist in our databases, treaties with species that have no corresponding historical presence, trade routes that lead to empty regions of space. Commander Vashti, who had also been granted permission to speak, activated her tactical analysis. The humans showed us possible futures for our civilization: expansion, resource depletion, internal conflict, collapse. The pattern matches what we observe in archaeological records of extinct civilizations. Without significant change, our current trajectory leads to extinction within 20,000 years. 20,000 years is an eternity, Senator Valterra protested. We cannot make decisions based on such distant projections. Dr. Morden's tentacles writhed with scientific excitement. But Senator, think of what we could learn. Access to the accumulated knowledge of 47 spacefaring civilizations. Scientific discoveries that could advance our understanding by millions of years. The offer represents the greatest educational opportunity in galactic history. General Volkash remained unconvinced. And the cost? The loss of our independence, our unique culture, our sovereignty as a free people? Are we to surrender everything we are for promises of transcendence? What if, a new voice interrupted, we demanded proof? The chamber fell silent. The speaker was Councillor Ralheth, the oldest member of the council and one of the few who had been alive when the original human boundary markers were discovered. Explain, Councillor, the Chancellor requested. If the humans truly wish to offer us transcendence rather than absorption by force, if they genuinely want to preserve our civilization rather than simply add us to their collection, then they should be willing to demonstrate their good faith. Admiral Zekthor leaned forward. What kind of demonstration? Let them restore one of our deleted ships, Councillor Ralheth said simply. If they can edit reality to remove something from existence, they should be able to edit it back in. Let them prove that their power can be used for restoration as well as destruction. The suggestion sent ripples of conversation through the chamber. It was a reasonable request. If the humans possessed such godlike power, surely they could demonstrate its beneficial applications. Furthermore, the councillor continued, let them allow a small group of volunteers to experience temporary absorption, with guaranteed restoration to individual existence after a specified time. Let us see what transcendence truly offers before committing our entire civilization. High Chancellor Dex Murian nodded thoughtfully. Admiral Zekthor, do you believe the human collective would agree to such terms? Before Zekthor could answer, the air in the center of the council chamber began to shimmer. Energy patterns coalesced into a familiar geometric form, one of the human constructs, appearing directly in the heart of Dominion government. Every weapon in the chamber was instantly trained on the apparition, but the construct showed no hostile intent. Instead, the collective consciousness spoke directly to the assembled representatives. Honored Council of the Galactic Dominion, we have monitored your deliberations with great interest. We appreciate the careful consideration you have given to our offer. General Volkash raised his weapon. How dare you invade our sovereign space? This is an act of war. General, the collective replied calmly. We exist partially outside normal space-time. Physical boundaries have little meaning to us. We come in peace to address your legitimate concerns. The Chancellor gestured for weapons to be lowered. You heard our discussion. Will you agree to Councillor Ralheth's proposed demonstration? We will do better than that, the collective responded. Councillor Ralheth, you are the oldest member of this body. You have lived through the discovery of our boundary markers. You remember the fear they inspired. Would you be willing to serve as our volunteer for temporary absorption? The ancient councillor stood slowly, his aged frame trembling slightly. You would grant an individual absorption and then restore them to independence. We have done so countless times throughout history. Consciousness, once expanded through our network, can be separated and returned to individual existence with all memories intact. You would experience transcendence temporarily and return with full knowledge of what we offer. Councillor Ralheth looked around the chamber at the faces of his colleagues. And the deleted ships? Can they be restored? They can. The editing of reality works in both directions. Observe. The construct pulsed with energy, and suddenly alarms began sounding throughout Dominion space. Admiral Zekthor received a priority communication from Fleet Command. Admiral, the voice was urgent. We're receiving distress signals from the Unbreakable Will. They report being attacked by unknown forces and request immediate assistance. Zekthor stared at the communication device in shock. The Unbreakable Will was one of the ships that had been deleted from existence during their encounter with the humans. According to the messages, the ship and its crew were experiencing the battle that had led to their deletion as if it were happening for the first time. They exist again, the collective explained, experiencing their original timeline. We can edit them fully back into reality or allow the timeline to proceed to its original conclusion. The choice is yours. The demonstration was undeniable. The humans possessed not just the power to destroy, but the power to create, to restore, to undo their own actions. They were not merely weapons of annihilation, but editors of reality itself. I volunteer, Councillor Ralhef declared. I will undergo temporary absorption and report my findings to this council. The collective construct moved closer to the ancient councillor. Are you certain? Once you experience transcendence, you may find individual existence limiting. I am certain. My people deserve to know what you truly offer. The construct gently enveloped Councillor Ralhef in a field of energy. For a moment, the elderly being's form became translucent, and his consciousness joined the vast network of minds that comprised the human collective. Through the chamber's monitors, the other council members could see glimpses of what he was experiencing, the memories and knowledge of millions of beings, the profound sense of connection and purpose that transcendence provided. After what seemed like hours but was actually only minutes, the councillor's individual form solidified again. He stood straighter than he had in decades, his eyes bright with wonder. My fellow representatives, he said, his voice filled with awe. I have experienced something beyond imagination. I have felt the accumulated wisdom of civilization spanning millions of years. I have touched the minds of beings whose knowledge encompasses the fundamental secrets of the universe itself. Senator Veltara leaned forward. And? What is your recommendation? Councillor Rolheth was quiet for a long moment. I have seen our future timeline, our probable fate if we continue on our current path. War, resource depletion, societal collapse, extinction. I have also seen what we could become, part of something greater than any individual civilization could achieve alone. But, he continued, I have also seen the price. Absorption into the collective means the end of the Dominion as an independent civilization. We would become part of humanity's transcendent network. We would gain immortality and infinite knowledge, but we would lose our sovereignty. General Vorkash stood. Then you recommend rejection? No, the councillor said quietly. I recommend acceptance. What we would gain far outweighs what we would lose. The collective preserves the unique aspects of each absorbed civilization while granting them capabilities beyond individual imagination. We would not lose ourselves, we would become more than ourselves. The chamber erupted in debate once again, but the councillor's testimony had clearly swayed many representatives. The oldest and wisest among them, having experienced transcendence directly, recommended acceptance. High Chancellor Dex Murian called for order. The testimony has been given, the demonstrations have been observed. We must now vote on the most important decision in our civilization's history. The vote, when it came, was closer than anyone had expected. 47% voted for absorption. 38% voted for rejection. 15% abstained, unable to make such a momentous choice. According to Dominion law, such a decision required a 75% majority. The vote had failed to reach consensus. The collective construct pulsed gently. Honored Council, we understand your difficulty. This choice has challenged every civilization we have encountered. We offer an alternative, voluntary individual absorption for those who choose transcendence, while allowing the Dominion to continue its current timeline for those who prefer independence. A compromise, the Chancellor mused. Some of our people join your collective, while others maintain our civilization's independence. Precisely. Though we should warn you, once individuals experience transcendence, few choose to return to purely individual existence. Your civilization may gradually diminish as more people choose absorption. Admiral Zekthor stood. As the one who first encountered your people, I request permission to be among the first volunteers for absorption. Commander Vashti immediately stood as well. As do I. Dr. Morden's tentacles writhed with excitement. And I. The scientific knowledge alone makes the choice obvious. One by one, representatives and citizens began volunteering for transcendence. The vote that had failed to reach consensus was being decided by individual choice rather than collective mandate. The collective consciousness observed with ancient patience. This is how it usually happens. Fear of the unknown gives way to curiosity about possibilities. Within a generation, most civilizations choose absorption voluntarily. High Chancellor Dex Murian looked around the chamber at the growing number of volunteers. Very well. Let those who choose transcendence join your collective. Let those who choose independence maintain the dominion. History will judge which choice was wiser. As the human construct began the process of consciousness transfer for the volunteers, Councillor Ralheth made one final observation. Fellow representatives, we have debated this as if we were choosing between two different... But I have seen the truth. We are choosing between evolution and extinction. The collective offers us immortality and infinite growth. Independence offers us freedom and eventual death. Perhaps, he concluded, the real question is not whether we should choose transcendence, but whether we are brave enough to deserve it. The chamber fell silent as the first volunteers began their transformation, their consciousness expanding beyond individual limitation to join something greater than any single civilization could achieve alone. For 50,000 years, humanity had waited for other species to make this choice. Now, as the Galactic Dominion began its transformation, the collective consciousness prepared to welcome the 48th civilization into transcendence. The galaxy was slowly learning that evolution, not conquest, was the ultimate destiny of intelligent life, and that humanity, in their infinite patience and wisdom, was not to be feared, but to be joined. The age of individual civilizations was ending. The age of collective consciousness was about to begin.